Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Cultural Creativity event today. I'll give you a bit of background about what cultural creativity is. My name's Luke Gledhill. I run a brand development agency here in Los Angeles. Is it on, Mac? Hey, okay, I can't see anything, Ken. Sorry, everyone. Okay, I'm back. My name's Luke Gledhill. I run a brand development agency here in Los Angeles called Just Up the Road. I essentially help brands take their product and brand message and get that across to who they want to reach. I also host a think tank group called the 21st Club here in Los Angeles that brings together people that do good and give back in social, spiritual, and environmental initiatives. That's something I'm really excited about and passionate about. Today, I'm super excited because we have a good friend of mine, Dechel. She's actually been on two event panels that I've done in the past, one fairly recently in downtown Los Angeles and one last year in West Hollywood with Soho House. So I'd like to bring on Dechel and welcome her.
Thank you so much, Luke, for having me.
Hey, Dechel, it's a pleasure to have you here today. I just want to start off by saying thank you for your time because I know you're a busy person and you run an incredible business. So thank you.
Of course. You're like an hour. I'm like, I got that.
Okay, so Dechel, you've been on my events twice in the past. They've been panel series events, so this is more an intimate thing, a one-on-one conversation. So let's start. If you could explain briefly who you are and what it is that you currently do.
Yes, so I'm Dechel Mckillian, and I'm the founder of Gallerie.LA. Gallerie.LA is a ethical fashion concept store that's located at Row DTLA, and we're online as well. And we just make it very easy for people to shop their values by curating brands that are artisan, eco-friendly, locally made. They use recycled materials and lots of vegan materials as well.
That's fantastic. I love that. And just there's probably some people watching this or might watch this later. Just explain what the Row DTLA is, because if you're not in Los Angeles, you probably don't know what that is.
Yes, Row is a new district that's based in downtown Los Angeles. It's a great collective of independent retailers, amazing Michelin star restaurants, and then it is creative offices as well. It's on 32 acres. It's just a beautiful environment to, even if you just like going to visit, just to even like walk around.
Yeah, I actually, my wife and I, we love it down there. Just the vibe and the concept of the Row, and especially with your store being there, it really fits in with the just the essence of everything that there is, and that's kind of not
Mhm.
far from the arts district in downtown. It's a
Yes,
really cool place to hang out. And
I agree.
if you haven't been there, then you should go, and you should go and visit Gallerie.LA, of
Yes.
course. Um, so, Deshelle, the last time we spoke, you told me a great story about what you were doing, and then the sort of the epiphany that you had that changed you into onto the direction of where you're going. If you can remember, can you go back a bit and explain what you used to do and to where you are now?
Yes. So before founding Gallerie.LA, I was a celebrity stylist, and I was working with musicians like the Black Eyed Peas, Lil Wayne, Drake, Nicki Minaj, Lionel Richie, and I was fortunate to travel all around the world with these artists. And that's what real like when you see the world on that level, it just made me more conscious of the negative impact that one I was having as a stylist by putting, garments on people who are just going to buy things because it was on a celebrity. And two, just I remember being in Peru and seeing a beach covered with lots of trash, and a lot of that was like clothing and shoes, and you could vividly see those. So there was just so much pollution, And that led me just my own conscious journey of being more aware of the products that I was putting on my body, what I was eating. And also, I wanted to look for designers that were ethical and using eco friendly materials. I probably wasn't even using sustainable back then. That just led me into a rabbit hole of finding the brands and just learning more about the sustainable fashion conversation. And I took about 6 months and built a spreadsheet with different designers, what categories they fell into of sustainability. And I was like, if I have been this hard of a time, I'm sure women like me all around the world are having a hard time as well. We're waking up to these facts every day. Fashion is the second largest pollutant in the world. And just, just so much waste and destruction that is associated with fashion. And that's how Gallerie.LA was born. I found so many amazing brands that were doing incredible things to support production and the garment workers, that side, but as well as furthering their impact that they have on the environment.
That's incredible. Essentially, you were starting to have the feeling that something's not right. And then obviously when you start to dig further, you weren't
Sure.
really able to find the resources directly. And I still think that's a bit of an issue now. You have people like yourself um, doing a great cause, but I still believe that there's only some opinions and there's not really great resources or culturally relevant in a way that if somebody wants to understand more, that it's easily accessible. I think that,
Hmm.
and so it's great that you took that onus on yourself and built out that spreadsheet and researched the people and brands. And it was something that Afdal said last week when I spoke with him about brands and companies on how ethics should really be one of their main platforms or one of their main pillars in their brands and companies. So within fashion, ethics obviously is looking after your workers, how they're treated, the environment they work in, and above and beyond that. And I think that even now, sustainability is really complex within fashion because you mentioned ethics and workers and factories, but then, like, where does that meet in the middle? How can you really synergize the two?
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's 2020, and we really have to look at a supply chain, and it is really one that companies need to look at from the inside out. The inside means like, what is that company's values? And like, one of those should be ethics. Why not put people first instead of profit? And I think once you start there, then that really helps a company to innovate, like what things are important because these are where my values are. In so many ways, I think that the fashion industry needs an overhaul. We have created an industry that's like a monster, and it's one that's built right now on consumption. You put out so many styles, like fast fashion retailers. You put out so many styles, there's nobody that's consuming all of that. So then you just end up with a lot of waste. I think if we can go back to it at the beginning stages, do we need to make, like, what do we need to make to meet our margins, and then like really reform that intention about what are we going to put out, because there is space for both profit, people, and the planet.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. Just to go back to when you were a stylist and especially touring as well, were you able to find whilst you were still being a stylist, were you able to find brands as your awareness was growing on what you felt was the right way to go? Were you able to find people and brands to style? Was that how it started before you launched Gallerie.LA?
It happened kind of at the same time. I think that with styling, I did meet a lot of that through working with emerging and independent designers. A lot of them could be making the items themselves, and it was truly avant-garde pieces, one of a kind. But then you have to examine like the materials. So I think that that's kind of where I started out as with styling, because At that point, and I think sustainability still has a very long way to go, but like reaching artists and their performances and just finding those like unique pieces didn't quite match a lot of the times with, some things that I was finding that were sustainable. And that's really how I was able to practice it. But for my own, I wanted to find brands that were wearable and that you could really be fashion forward without compromising your ethics or like wanting sustainable goods. And so I think a lot of the pieces that we carry at Gallery.LA are very like timeless, maybe not performance wise that you would put on a celebrity, but like for our everyday lives.
I think that's a good point that you made, that if I think about a conversation with somebody that is not focused on sustainability or ethics when it comes to fashion, there's still a large stigma attached to sustainability in fashion, right?
Yes.
It's kind of, people might say granola or something else is brought up in their mind's eye of when they
Hmm.
think about what sustainability in fashion is. But there's so many leaders now, there's so many people now with brands and companies that are doing incredible, like you said, fashion forward styles and products, and really leading the way. It's not
Hmm.
what it used to be by any stretch of the imagination. And so who do you, like, through your retail space and through your network, who do you feel is really leading the way in fashion right now when it comes to sustainability and ethics as well?
Yes. I mean, on a bigger level, I would definitely say Stella McCartney is one of the ones that is a huge leader, and her company and brand has been for, I mean, like over 10 years easily. And so when the larger fashion industry looks towards like, what are these people doing? Like she is one from, again, the inside out. It's not only that workers are getting paid fair wages and there's ethics there, but the materials she uses, she's been one to like from the go use lots of vegan materials. And that wasn't really heard of in a luxury sector. So I definitely, think Stella McCartney is a great one on an emerging brand kind of front. Some of the brands that we carry are Backbeat Co., just, making very great everyday essentials that are made here in Los Angeles, all eco-friendly materials and great styles as well. We have also Conrado that does all dead stock fabrics, meaning that within the fashion industry, a lot of people don't know that there's tons of waste before a garment even is made, because all the fabric scraps are literally getting thrown away. Or maybe they're going to cut 500 garments and then decide we're only going to make 100 because of the orders that we got. So then you have that fabric. So that's what dead stock is. A lot of brands go to used fabrics that would normally be discarded. And a lot of these companies just throw the fabric in the trash can. So Conrado is using dead stock fabrics. So that's just a few. I mean, we work with over 100 different brands over the last couple of years now.
So that's interesting what you mentioned about dead stock fabric. And I'm learning consistently all the time, and it's quite scary to think that brands and companies actually custom make their own fabrics. And
Hmm.
like you said, they only end up cutting a very small amount from that. Sometimes the fabrics will end up at a fabric store. Like, there's some great places downtown LA where you can just go and shop all of this dead stock fabric. But
Hmm.
then you hear of bigger fashion houses will actually burn the fabric, and as well as the actual garments they haven't sold, which
Yes.
is a story that you don't really hear or read about.
Hmm.
I'm sure because they want to cover that up, but that's quite a crazy statistic to think about. But so really, the way deadstock fits in with sustainability in fashion is that is kind of one part. Upcycling is another part as well, right?
Yes.
And vintage.
So, yeah, there's three. They all kind of fall in the recycled value system at Gallery LA, but there is recycled. So that is like the dead stock fabrics that you're just using. There's upcycled, and that means turning something that will normally be, again, thrown away, like a material, and then turning that into something completely new. So we have a company that we carry at GalerieLA called Cled, and they make all glass jewelry from recycled wine bottles and
Wow.
different gym bottles and things that they find. And so that's all turned into jewelry. And so that's upcycled. And then you have vintage, which is all the stuff that was produced that you could wear and give new life. Like vintage is my favorite because you don't see styles like that out. I think it brings about very unique styles. And then, like within that vintage category, you can find also a lot of new things from different companies that are now like repurposing that, and like thrift stores and thread up different companies are giving you access to things that they're finding.
I think what's interesting is I can't remember if it was the beginning of this year or at the end of last year. Virgil Abloh was quoted as saying that vintage is the future of fashion, which is kind of ironic because he's the head of menswear for an iconic fashion
Yeah.
house, and he also has his own brand as well. But I was interested to see what he would follow up with that, but I haven't really seen anything from that. Maybe, I mean, I would love to see him as a iconic, I guess, thought leader in fashion to really be
Mhm.
spearheading with more things that are in a sustainable fashion.
Absolutely. And he has the power to do it. And I think that like the more that he keeps going, he will eventually there, because actually I was sitting in a panel with Virgil a few years ago, and he said the design gives us access to humanity. And I thought that that was so powerful in so many different ways. And so yeah, I think if he just keeps going, like it's there. It's like humanity, like what we are doing as humans to our
Yeah,
world, to other people. We have to think about that.
yeah, I love that. What do you think the future is for brands, Dechelle, for brands, companies, and people that really aren't being transparent about their business practices? What do you think the future is for those brands and companies, especially in
Mhm.
sustainability?
Yeah, it's so interesting because right now I feel like the spread of the coronavirus really highlighted, like what is happening in fashion and transparency, because there were all these brands that were called out recently because when this hit, they started canceling orders. And so a lot of factories had one began making those orders, two workers with getting sent home, no pay absolutely for all the work that they had done. And like the factories are being closed. There's no anything for like these third world developing countries who workers really rely on these garment jobs. So that was a huge light. And there was actually a petition with Remake that went around that got all of these H&M, a few bigger retailers to really start paying those orders and not cancel them. So what that did for, if you were paying attention to anybody, like, okay, wait, I don't want to work for, or I don't want to buy clothes that are slave labor. That just exposed really what it is. Like they just worked and are not getting paid. So immediately canceled. Like brands are just like, people are not going to support that and not going to put their money with those brands. And so, I think that that's where we start. Like there is a huge light that needs to go on in the fashion industry that showcases what garment workers are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And two, I think that as a consumer, if I could do better, and I'm aware that I could do better, I'm not going to buy from a company that just refuses to pay attention to their environmental impact and their messaging and like actually what they're doing there. I'm just like, I don't want to, like, life's too short. I don't have time for that anymore. So I think a lot of people are getting like that and really are spending their money with the small businesses and other companies that are making sustainability the forefront of what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, I can't agree more. And I remember, I think it was at the end of last week when I saw somebody reposting that campaign, and the list, there was actually an update list I saw. So on the left-hand side, there were companies and brands that had started paying, but then on the right, there was still this really long list.
Hmm.
And you know, we're talking millions and billions of dollars worth of product that they were canceling, not paying for. And it was, I was shocked because I'm in fashion and have been for many years. But I'm surprised that that's not public knowledge. You know, I happen to come across it because of the people I follow, but
Hmm.
I think probably a lot of people aren't aware of what is actually going on.
Oh, absolutely not. It's not like something that you turn on the news and hear. That part of fashion, for some reason, it just keeps getting swept under the rug. And I think it's time now. That's why it's important that we're having these discussions so that people really know what's happening with the brands that they're buying.
Yeah, yeah. There's a great film I was able to see a premiere for in December last year called The Brave Blue World. And that was all about the current water issues that we have globally. And obviously, you know, if wherever you live in the world, you might not be privy to the knowledge that there are water issues.
Hmm.
Um, and that there was a good look. Essentially, the film was about solutions to the water issue. And there was a great conversation with a factory owner in India and how they'd completely integrated zero water waste throughout their whole facility, and really gave a great look on what that can be for the future of fashion. So when you talk about sustainability, and you were talking earlier about complete transparency through sourcing and supply chain, that goes right down to how the factory runs itself as well. There's a great denim factory in Vietnam called Cytex, and they're a B Corp. They're the only B Corp denim factory. And you can go on their website and see completely A to Z of everything they do for their workers, how they run the plant, the factory itself, how they cut all waste and reuse all waste. And I think that certainly needs to be looked in a supply chain way.
Yes, I agree. And as a customer, maybe that's like so much information to take in. But once you do, then you start to set the bar to expect that from all different companies that you buy from. And I think that, it's as simple as just making that information public knowledge and, just really addressing what happens throughout the supply chain. Whereas most companies are like, oh, no, 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 we don't want you to know any of this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Deshelle, where do you see the future of commerce and consumerism going? Obviously there's always the great quotes about using your money to vote, right? Voting with your money. Where do you see the future of commerce and consumerism going?
Yes, I think right there. At every level, you can vote with your dollar. And I think, again, like this situation with COVID-19 is just, as a person, like most people are just like at home and they realize, oh, like you're more intentional about what you're buying. Because I think in America, a lot of times people just fill their time with buying things, and that's the level of consumption that we're so privy to. Oh, like everything's just so convenient. You can order from Amazon, you can run to the mall, like everything, and just kind of consuming things. Right now it's really slowed down so that people really can say like, hey, do I need that? What is, like, what am I actually buying? And now, like, we're on the computer a lot more, so we can research things instead of, like you just go to the store and you're forced to buy that. You can now look around because you have the time to other brands and see what's out there and what they're saying. So I think, it's just, that's where consumerism is going. A lot of the brands that are just putting out things, again, like canceled, like nobody needs those things anymore once you're kind of more aware. And we do have the time now. We're not filling our time with, just being busy and going out. So that is where it's going. I think it's forcing bigger brands to be relevant, to adhere to sustainability and, strive for that. last year was I had all these big brands like through panels and different things that I was on, people from those panels come to me and say like, "Hey, I want to bring these sustainable initiatives to my bigger company." And so
Yeah.
I think that like that's where it's going in order for them to stay relevant or even to stay, getting top dollars for what they're doing.
What do you think about um, kind of resale platforms or even rental platforms, especially in high end and luxury? You like the Real, what they do with reselling high end luxury fashion, and then there's other Rent the Runway and other platforms that are popping up as well. How do you see that
Mhm.
fitting in? And I guess I'd like to know your opinion on this. Where do you see the bigger fashion houses having a play with that, a role in that?
Yeah, I actually think that they're going to struggle a little bit because the more that these things kind of pop up, it really allows people to consume less. Like you're not buying new if you're renting. So like there's new models that have to come up and be birthed out of this time because the technology is really changing the way that we consume things. And so I think Rent the Runway, again, it's a great solution for women who tend to buy things to wear them once. Oh, I have a bridal shower to go to. I'm going to go buy this $500 dress. Nope. Instead, I'm going to rent that dress for $80, return it because it's just going to be sitting in my closet. The way that luxury works is you tend to buy this bag, and if it is a like great bag, it's going to appreciate over time. And you see that with like some of the vintage Chanel, like, pieces are now like $20,000. And so what happens when it can go directly to the real, it's no longer sitting in that woman's closet, it's going directly. So it actually lessens the value of what these things are. So, luxury is going to have a hard time just competing with now there's all these mid luxury brands. So instead of a bag being $5,000, you can get something of the moment for 500. And so everything is, really changing. And I think that the technology platforms are allowing us to go to the future where we need to be, which was really in like circular, like things can continue to stay in float through different people for a longer time than it being bought and discarded, which a lot of, truly luxury and just clothing is done right now.
I'm glad you mentioned circular, actually, because that's something that I think plays a key important role in the future of sustainability in fashion, is how the circular economy of a garment or a product can really move forward in the way that, good friends of ours, Maurizio, who was on the
Hmm.
panel that you spoke on last time, Atelier and Repairs, their brand, their main motto as a brand, as a business, is to put themselves out of business, as in they want to be
Yeah.
recircle enough that there's nothing left to. So I think circular for sure, and it excites me when I see brands that are trying to really push the needle in regards to being circular. There's I forget the name of it, but there was a t-shirt brand where it was a blank basic t-shirt. You could essentially buy it, wear it for however long, and then they'll
Oh,
take it
for
back off
days.
you, and that's it. Okay, yeah,
Yeah. They're incredible. Exactly. Like this is where we need to be with innovation. It can all truly like as a t-shirt, most people don't like unless it's a vintage or something you love. But if it's just a basic, you're not bringing that out for years and years to come. And so
yeah,
like when you've worn that white t-shirt and you have like your sweaty pit stains, you can send that back. And what they're going to do is dissolve that into a polymer and then they're going to make a new t-shirt with the cotton.
yeah,
And so like that's just genius. It really, takes now we don't need to keep growing all this cotton. We can grow food.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
It's really interesting. A good friend of mine, Landon, he owns a brand called Tact and Stone, a menswear, sustainable menswear
mhm.
brand. He's actually not far from you in downtown. He spent 2 years researching sourcing and supply chain, and has created this incredible menswear collection. And he's starting to implement his is kind of menswear casuals, but some basics as well. And he's trying to implement some circular process to his brand as well. And I just think it's definitely an important piece of the bigger puzzle that's
Mhm.
moving down the line with fashion.
I agree.
Um, was one piece of advice that you could give to somebody who's watching or listening that could really encourage them to take the first step in doing something good for the environment, whether it's with fashion or just in general?
Mhm. It's so funny because I feel like the last panel that we were on, it just went to like self and whether it's sustainable or not, just using that, it goes back to self and just like really being aware. And I think when we're conscious about what we're going to buy, what we're going to consume in our everyday life, just being, having that light bulb go off to just ask questions like, do I need this? What's going to be the impact? And just taking that moment to just be aware, that
Yeah,
is really the first step. And you can have that moment, you can still go by it. It's like, okay, like I messed up there, but like that awareness, like just having that, it's like a muscle that must be exercised every
yeah,
day.
yeah,
And when you start to ask those questions, for me, it started with like fashion, but now it's in every way of my life. It's home, it's wellness, it's how I take care of myself, like what am I eating, all the different things. And once we start get there, I think we just become more whole individuals.
yeah. I really love that you said that, Deshelle. It made me think that once you have asked yourself the question first, or you've read something, you go down that rabbit hole of you have to ultimately feel right in yourself. And if it, you have to ask that question to yourself first before you're going to make a purchase or before you're going to do something. And you're the only one that knows if it feels right to yourself. And so I think that, as you said, it goes back to self. And it's not just about fashion, it's about everything from what we eat, what we put on our skin, how we live our life. And what you'll
Yeah.
start to feel is when you're understanding and reading more, something doesn't feel right. Like you said, when you were a stylist, something just doesn't feel right in your stomach. And once you have that feeling, you can't ignore that. That just
Hmm.
grows and grows. I'll walk around in a supermarket and you'll just see the packaging of products on the aisle. And sometimes it really repels me. It's quite scary to think that, what is actually happening. But on the flip side of that, there's some great research and work being done on everything,
Hmm.
whether it's fashion, packaging, food related.
Yeah.
But I 100% agree. It definitely comes down to self for sure.
Hmm.
I'm really interested to know, Deshelle, if there's something that you've learned along the way that's really been valuable to you moving forward in the journey that you've had.
Um, yeah, I mean, so many things. It's like when you start off as a entrepreneur, and I started Gallerie.LA and really got the idea in 2014, worked really hard to launch it in 2015, and there's been so much evolution that's taken place in the space of sustainable fashion. And so I just think that we're at a point now where there's a lot of collaboration that's needed. We need like people to start to come together and share ideas and share information, because it can be done in every different industry where we're making sustainability the forefront. Like you said, when you go into the grocery store and there's just everything's in plastic, what's the innovation that needs to happen there so we're not filling everything with plastic? There's already tons and tons of things to replace plastic, but they're not on a mass level. So we need people, everyday people that work at these companies, to start to go to them with solutions and just do the research, because the machine is not going to stop. We need to like start to, like fix it while it's on the go.
Yeah. I really love that. I really love that. I'm super interested to know, Dechel, in the nearly 5 years that I've been in Los Angeles, as a city, it's so creatively forward, and the people and brands and companies that I know in this city really are striving for a better future. I'm super interested how Los Angeles as a city has played a role in your life and with Gallerie.LA as well.
Oh, so I'm born and raised in LA, and it's so interesting to even think because I don't know like the type of person I would be if I didn't grow up in LA. And like with that, I just mean that it's such a unique city where there is a lot of creativity. And I think that that also allows more self-expression. And so I think that there's like tons of, artists, musicians. I have so many friends that are entrepreneurs that have come up with, these businesses to meet their life needs. And I think that that's really inspiring. And so I think it's, everybody continues to work and strive for making the world a better place. I think that's like so cheesy, but to say, but it's really true. And, you can like walk to anything and you meet someone that's like within their business doing better. And that could be through giving back, through recycling, through, different charitable initiatives, but it's just something that's beautiful. And I think it is very unique to the city.
Fantastic. I love that. There's some things that you have on your website that I just wanted to mention and really hear where that came from for you. There's three things. You have values, so should your clothes.
Hmm.
Make better buying decisions, and your closet has an impact on the world.
Yes.
So just
um,
elaborate a little bit on that. On
so the first one, you have values, so should your clothes. So we have a sustainable value badge system. And for me, I developed that at GalerieLA to make it really easy to understand sustainability because it's still this word that I think a lot of people use, or maybe it's used a lot more because I'm in it. But back in 2000, 12, 13, I was not using sustainable. So I really even had to understand what that word meant. And I think values is a good thing that replaces sustainability. And so like you have your values, maybe it's family, maybe it's your home, maybe, like your spirituality, whatever that could be, what you value shows up in your everyday life. And so we broke down what sustainability means. And so, like the clothing that you wear can be of value to you. So, maybe that's shopping locally, maybe it's environmentally friendly fabrics, maybe you're a vegan, so you want to put your money with brands that are vegan. So, in every different way your closet can be of your own personal values. What was the second one you said?
it
Your
was
dollar has an impact, your closet has
make
an impact. Oh,
make
make better
better. Yeah,
buying decisions.
yeah.
Well, because I feel like, we buy something every day. And so once you start to decide, like, can I start doing good with what I'm going to buy? It could be anything that you choose to buy, and it could be better. And so once you start to put your money and be better, oh, I feel good about this purchase, and you start wanting to do that a lot more. And then your closet has an impact. So, 10 years ago, I had a closet filled, like it was ridiculous, like so many clothes, like clothes, shoes, jewelry, all the things. One of those people with like four different closets and, just tons of stuff. It was ridiculous. And like none of it meant anything. Maybe like some of the vintage pieces that were, around like years, but a lot of that designer stuff, a lot of the fast fashion, it could be like it just literally thrown away or it was worth nothing. So your closet, when you look at that and look at the impact, like the dress I have is from a brand Rallier, and they produce things locally in New York. And then they've teamed up with a nonprofit. So for every dress that's purchased, they donate 1 to 3 school uniforms to
Wow.
schoolgirls in Kenya.
Oh,
And so
wow.
what that does is for those girls that are dropping out of school because they don't have a uniform, it keeps them in school. And the long-term effect of that is that this girl is now a woman and she can support her family because she has an education. And everything that it can have an impact. So many brands do so many amazing things, and so that's how we can start to look at, like, you can have an impact on someone else, you can have an impact on the environment. There's so many different ways.
Well, that's great. I'm really glad I brought that up because that's a really special thing um, to end on, actually. Before we go, because the store's not open, can you tell us, just say the web address where everyone can go, and then anywhere else you want to send anybody to see what you're doing?
Hmm. Yeah, so the store is not open. You can still go to Row, and it's a great place to walk around. There's still like a few restaurants that are open right
Oh,
now,
cool.
so you can get your meals to go. And at Gallerie.LA, we're online at www.galerie.la, and we're offering free 2-day shipping on any orders, or you can buy online and pick up curbside by appointment only.
Oh, fantastic. That's great. Deshelle,
Thank
I can't thank you enough for your time today. I'm
you
really
so
grateful.
much, Luke.
This is the third time I've had the opportunity to talk with you about what you do, and I'm very, very blessed for that.
Thank
So
you.
thank you, Deshelle,
Likewise.
and
Have a
and
great.
I will come and see you when the store's back open.
Yes. Can't wait to see your face in person.
Take care,
Okay, talk
Deshelle.
soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye. Okay, that was a really great conversation. I love Deshelle. I love everything she stands for with what she does with Gallerie.LA. If you're in Los Angeles, I really advocate for you to go down and see her store in real life. If not, then you can go to Galerie.LA and see the wonderful work she's doing there. I'll be doing more of these this week, so please stay tuned. Go to connect.tv, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. Bye bye.